Welcome to the 5th episode in a Legendarium series about the life and reign of King Edward III. In Part 5, A Shower of Arrows, we will talk about the aftermath of King Edward's victory at Sluys and his much more famous triumph at the Battle of Crecy. King Edward's crushing victory over the French fleet at Sluys in 1340 astonished even his own subjects and allies. Chroniclers wrote that so many French went into the water that the sea turned red and the fish would have learned to speak French. Edward III even displayed a new royal coat of arms, combining England's lions rampant with the French fleur-de-lis. Unfortunately, King Edward's victory proved expensive, not in blood, but gold. His payments to Flemish and German allies during the 3 years prior to Sluys amounted to nearly 1,000 marks a day. All total, 3 years' war and one great victory put him £400,000 in debt, mainly to Italian bankers like the Bardi and Peruzzi families. As collateral, he had to put up the crown jewels. While the church forbade usury, a range of ingenious bookkeeping devices hid interest loans as high as 40%. Indeed, just 1 month after his incredible victory at Sluys, 3 English earls were arrested in Brussels by their creditors as they stood as guarantors of debts now in default. Only with great effort did King Edward III secure their release. Even worse, having paid for the loyalty of the German emperor, Edward III learned that the emperor chose to simply keep his gold and stay home. Back in England, people protested the high taxes levied to finance King Edward's war. Protest songs like Song Against the King's Taxes complained that such tribute can in no manner last long. People are reduced to such ill plight that they can give no more. If they had a leader, they would rise in rebellion. With money short, Edward III found his invasion of France stalled. King Philip VI of France, having seen Edward's skill on the battlefield, chose to avoid fighting him, which meant no more victories for Edward. In November 1340, Edward III sailed home, taking 3 days to cross the Channel due to violent storms. After navigating a gray and turbulent Thames River, the drenched royal entourage staggered back into England. There, he found the guards in the Tower of London asleep, and during wartime no less. He burst into the tower and made a list of men he wanted brought before him for dereliction of duty. During Christmas, he held more tournaments while exchanging angry letters with Archbishop Stratford, who thought England had been taxed enough. During a parliament in March 1341, Edward III learned with dismay that the great lords sided with Archbishop Stratford and against him. Humiliated, King Edward III chose to make peace, promising fewer taxes and more parliamentary supervision. On June 5, 1341, Queen Philippa gave birth to another son named Edmund. Lords gathered for feasting and tournaments to celebrate the coming of a new royal son and the return of civil peace. In years to come, Edward even arranged a 3-year truce between himself and the Scots. Yet his peaceable ways in the north, unsurprisingly, were made because of events in France. In April 1341, Duke Jean of Brittany died, setting off the War of Breton Succession. King Edward III sent his men to fight on behalf of English allies in Brittany. There, 3 of his war captains showed their prowess. Walter Manny was an enthusiastic captain who personally charged into each battle, bellowing his name Manny as he did so. Henry of Lancaster had devoted his younger days to wine, women, and song, but now took up scholarly pursuits like writing the Book of the Holy Medicines. Of course, he also had enough time for regular church attendance and military innovations. Third came Captal de Buch, the leading cavalry commander of his age. Together with King Edward III, they created a revolution in military tactics. They had knights dismount and fight in square-shaped units flanked by crossbowmen and longbowmen. The latter used 6-foot bows that required a lifetime of training to build the needed upper arm strength. Edward III had given up on expensive and unreliable alliances. All his soldiers now came from England, ranging from feudal levies to peasants press-ganged into service. All told, that the French wished to invade England and force the English to speak French and open the door to Scottish raiders. King Edward III built up his army in secret. Very few men knew their destination before they left the English coast. On July 12, 1346, Edward III himself landed in Brittany. Despite orders not to harm the French, his enraged army slaughtered, looted, and burned as it went. The army included Edward's son, the Black Prince, now 16 years old. When they reached the fortress of Caen, the old capital of William the Conqueror, they slaughtered 2,500 people and sent the rich to England, where they would become prisoners. By August 12th, the English came within 20 miles of Paris. Panic erupted in the city as Parisians realized they could be overwhelmed and butchered. The French barricaded their homes and battened the doors to prepare for street-to-street fighting. As panic spread, King Philip VI had to send soldiers to stop riots among his own subjects. All the while, the English built a bridge across the Seine River. Yet instead of attacking Paris, Edward III marched north towards Flanders, pushing so hard that the exhausted infantry wore through their shoes and foraging parties left the countryside stripped bare. They hoped to unite with an army of Flemish rebels, only to learn that no such army awaited them. On the other hand, King Philip VI had raised his own army and happily waited to meet Edward III on the battlefield. King Philip raised an army that outnumbered Edward's 2-1 and included 8,000 mounted knights and 4,000 Genoese crossbowmen. At Crécy, Edward halted his army and prepared for the French attack. First, the two sides shouted curses and insults at one another. Late in the afternoon of August 26, as it began to rain, Philip's Genoese crossbowmen led the assault, only to be overwhelmed by Edward's 10,000 longbowmen, who could reload faster and fire further. In less than 10 minutes, they fired 10,000 arrows. The crossbowmen then retreated, and the French mounted knights charged the English lines. In charge after charge, the horses and riders perished in a merciless blizzard of white-painted arrows. At nightfall, the French finally withdrew. Nearly a third of their army lay dead in the field, including Philip's brother Charles II of Alencon, his allies King John of Bohemia and Louis II of Nevers, along with 1,500 other knights and esquires, also perished. King John, blind and elderly, had a younger man tie his horse to his so he could ride towards the battle, carrying a banner marked "I serve." Philip himself escaped with a wound. King Edward III lost fewer than 100 men in one of the greatest victories in medieval history. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.